Hello, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Cassandra, aka The Prosperous Heart, and I am here to share with you things that I feel may empower you to lead a more prosperous life, whether that's in software development or gardening or whatever it is that I know of or can introduce you to that will help you lead that life. I'm going to be sharing with you. So, in today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about strategic execution. So I am now a credentialed strategic execution professional through Duke, and I absolutely love being able to help people see the big picture and really figure out exactly how to get a project from idea to execution. So I wanted to share with you some things that I have learned along the way that have really helped me make sure that my projects have actually come to fruition, have done what they needed to do. But I also wanted to share with you that sometimes when you are doing projects, you may do them, you may have to put them on hold for a while, but you don't know exactly what's going to happen or how that work is going to help you in the future. I have two examples of this I'm going to share really fast before I dive into the actual topics to show you the impact that this can take. So the first example I wanted to share with you is that I've worked at Cisco for most of my corporate career. And in 2018, I think, I started something called Coding Hour. And it was basically where either every 2 weeks, either myself, or except in November, December, either myself or someone else would come on to talk about training, training in Python, artificial intelligence, machine learning, it, projects they wanted people to be more aware of. And I did that for several years, maybe a couple, two, three, whatever, however many years it was before I left the first time for Cisco or from Cisco. And that has, while it never came to fruition in the way that I intended to, where there were different groups across the globe that did it. We kind of got it started before I left, but even though it didn't quite end as how I would have liked, the structure that I put behind it, the planning, the templates, other things like that, that all helped when I came back to Cisco to start doing that again and start having those types of trainings to support people. But it also meant that my efforts impacted the people who attended and heard about it, joined the WebEx room. So exactly how did that come, or rather, how did that initial project, when it had to get dropped, right, because I left Cisco, how did that affect me today? Well, because I did that, I did it for so long, and I made sure that the goals of it, which were to support people in their education for programming and data science, things like that, that work and that focus allowed for people to know who I was and a little bit of what I could do and how I might be able to support them in their efforts. And that's actually how I found two jobs past that role in Cisco, because people knew of me. They either worked with me, they had been a part of Coding Hour. They found me through the fact that I had taken it upon myself to complete these projects and work through them in support of my fellow colleagues, right? And so that is an example of where you have a project that may not have come to my grand vision, right? But because of everything else in the pillars I'm going to share with you today, it allowed for a lot of other opportunities to open up, not just for me, but for other people as well. And I don't really think the second example I was going to share, so I'm just going to go ahead and get into the content because that's what we're here today to talk about, right? So the four pillars, if you want to call them that, or the four milestones, as it were, can be condensed down into one acronym, and that's VAPE, Victor Alpha Papa Echo, right? So VAPE. So this has nothing to do with what an actual vape is or how that works, but the four pillars or milestones in every single project that I have had that has been successful and has, done some really great stuff is this. V is for vision. If you don't have a vision of what you want to do, who you want to help, how you want to get there, you're going to struggle. That vision is what's going to help you really pinpoint, hey, of all the things that I could be doing for this project, these are the things that are going to be most important, the MVP, the most minimum viable product. These are the things I really need to focus on, and they have to get done in order for this vision to come to fruition, right? So without vision, the people perish. So your first of these four pillars is vision. The second is accountability, right? It's the A in VAPE. Without accountability, you know, how do you know that's going to get done? Who do you go to make sure that things are accomplished? If this is a project that you're the only one working on, well, you have to hold yourself accountable. But if there's other people involved, maybe stakeholders, maybe other people who want to be supportive of your efforts, maybe you're part of a volunteer group like what I'm doing next month with Girls Powers Tech, where we have high school kids come in and we teach them about technology and women in STEM careers and things like that. You have to have accountability, whether it's for volunteering or it's an actual job. So accountability is super important. The third pillar is a plan. You have to have a plan for a project. Doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to have every single thing lined out, but you do have to have a plan. You have to know your major milestones. You've got to know the important things that have to be accomplished. You've got to know, if you're doing a webinar, you've got to think about things like, okay, we have to have the recording. So are we going to have a replay? Is that going to be something that we sell as a replay? Is it, all these things that you have to figure out, but you have to have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, you might forget things. You might not get things done in a good timeline, let alone on time. Maybe you have a deadline, but you don't plan all the pieces that are required to do so in that amount of time. And so you're just, shooting yourself in the foot, right? So vision, accountability, you've got to have a plan. And then finally, the E in VAPE is execution. Because if you have a great vision, you hold yourself accountable, you have a plan, but you don't execute, you don't create the time, you don't make the time to do that, then you just spent a whole lot of time daydreaming, right? So those are the four pillars of having a successful project: vision, accountability, plan, and execution. That's your VAPE. Now, all of that applies to the 9 things I'm about to share with you right now. So how I approach new projects, and this is kind of the same for even projects that I'm coming in on that's already been in the works. But if I'm starting a project, whether it's a new software solution or something else, this is what I do. The first thing, what do I know about this project, about this topic? For example, in my day job, I am basically a developer advocate, and the biggest role up to date has been establishing and implementing software development standards across the teams within my little sub org. And so the very first thing I've always done is, what do I know about this topic? What do I know about testing? What do I know about security? I will put it out, right? Since I've been working at Cisco so long, I have a lot of people that I could connect with, that I could look up certain websites that I was aware of for security training, or whatever the case may be. What do I know? The second step is, who are the stakeholders and what are their goals? If you are not including your stakeholders from the beginning and making sure you communicate with them, you're going to have a really hard time. In fact, you may, it's happened to us all. You may do things that you think are cool and awesome and helpful, only to find out that after hours of work and a lot of stuff that you may have accomplished, maybe it was nothing what they needed. Maybe you have to start all over. So if you do not know who your stakeholders are and what their goals are, you cannot create a project that properly aligns with what your vision is and what they need, right? So you've got to make sure you know who your stakeholders are and what their goals are. The third step is, you got to understand who are your allies in this. Who is it that you may need to turn to in order to accomplish those shared goals? So if you know that you have this project, maybe it's a pet project, maybe it's something that your leadership has passed down to you, that you need to work with other people to get it done, you have to know who they are. And you also have to start building that relationship, because if they don't really know who you are, maybe they don't have that clout with each other yet, they may just be like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. And then, maybe later on down the road, you're still waiting for that and they just haven't prioritized it. So you've got to know who your allies are. You've got to make sure that what they understand of what you're trying to accomplish also helps them with whatever it is they're trying to do. Because most of the time, unless it's a directive from your leadership to those people as well, it can be a struggle to get them to do anything outside of what they're already working on, because we all have way too much to do in a day, right? So find out who your allies are, build that rapport, and understand what it is that you're doing that also ties in to their goals. So that way you can complete shared goals together, right? Number four is to determine your milestones for success. What is absolutely required to have this project be completed, and what are some nice to haves? For example, in software engineering, there are certain requirements that you have to have. Some people may say that security and testing is optional. I would counter that. But if you're avoiding that particular piece of things, if a customer says, I must have this, and you do not include that in your planning, then you're going to be having some really big problems, right? Because that's a requirement. Whereas a nice to have might be a different option for color on your web page. Maybe it is something that the customer didn't ask for that you feel is important or that you feel could improve the user experience. Well, if it's not something that they need to do their job, it's not a requirement. It may be a request, but it's not a requirement. So understand or determine what your milestones for success are and make sure you understand which one's required and which ones are nice to have. The fifth step is to determine dependencies. So when you understand what your milestones are, let's say, for example, you are doing a webinar or a live, right? You have to understand what those milestones are for that. So let's say that you are doing this. You know that you have to have a live recording. You got to know what your topic is. You've got to probably determine how to deal with the replay, whether it's paid or free. If you're putting it up on a um, blog post, you've got to make sure you have the article. You've got to make sure that you have all the things in place, which, by the way, this will be put up on my blog. So if you go to this site right here, prosperousheart.com/project verticals, this recording as well as other information will be stored on that page. If you go right this moment, it won't be fully fleshed out. It's just there to make sure that this exists, but that information will be there. So, maybe you know that all those things have to happen in order to have those dependencies. Well, if you've got to have the recording before you can send out the replay. You've got to, I think you get the idea, right? So determine your dependencies. The next step is to confirm and prioritize with your stakeholders. If you go out and be like, okay, yeah, I got my requirements, I've done this plan, I'm just going to go and do, but you haven't confirmed that the stakeholders approve, you're probably going to be having some issues. And I know I keep saying that, but it's true. Because let's say that you had your initial discussion about what the requirements are and all of that, and you go off and you go and plan and you figure all the stuff out. And let's say that your understanding wasn't accurate, right? We're human. Sometimes we hear things or we process things in a manner that the other person who's speaking did not intend. And so if we are not checking in with the stakeholders to make sure that what they are needing is not what you're accomplishing, then you could, again, be wasting your time. You could be diminishing rapport with your customer because then they're like, you don't even listen, right? So make sure that once you've understood your milestones, determined your dependencies, that you prioritize and confirm with your stakeholders the work so that they can say, yes, that makes sense. No, this is not the case. This is kind of accurate, but it's not quite yet what we need. That will help make sure that you are refining what the work is that you need to accomplish, right? So confirm and prioritize with stakeholders. The next is to actually create your project plan with work estimations. Your work estimations, they're estimations. They are not set in stone. But as you continue to work on your projects and track your time, I highly suggest tracking your time. That helps you understand for yourself that, oh, this project was similar to this other one that took me 15 hours. This will probably take me 15, but maybe a little less because I've already done some of this work, right? So tracking your time helps you to determine work estimations, but create that project plan. You know what's dependencies, you know what's required. You can build out, okay, in this sprint, I'm going to be working on XYZ, and I expect that I'll be able to create an MVP within X number of sprints. And of course, this isn't set in stone unless you have some contractual obligations. So make sure that if something happens where the things that you have planned are not able to be completed with the time frame that you said would happen, that you are communicating this, letting people know why this is happening and what you're doing to resolve it as well as to avoid it in the future, right? So create your project plan with work estimations. The next is, again, get buy-in and approval from your stakeholders. You've already got their confirmation and prioritization of the pieces of work and dependencies, but now you're getting their buy-in and approval on the project plan. Because once again, maybe something's changed for them since the last time you talked, and what they had originally as priority has now switched around. So you want to make sure that before you implement your plan, that you have approval and buy-in from your stakeholders. And then last but not least, number 9, implement in collaboration with impacted parties. No man or no human is an island, right? Even if you are leading a project, if it forces some type of change for anyone else, you really need to work with them to make sure that they understand what's going on, that they understand the risks of not being able to accomplish this versus the benefit, right? Because change can be hard for people. Some people are like, let's go, let's do it. Other people are like, I don't understand this. This doesn't make any sense. It works the way that I've been doing it for a decade. Whatever the case may be, every human is different. But there is going to be some things that need to happen for those changes to take place if it's something like, impacting people's standards, for example. But again, implement in collaboration with your impacted parties. So those are the 9 steps, I guess you could call it, for creating and implementing a successful project. And again, the 4 pillars of any project are vision, is your VAPE. Vision, accountability, plan, and execution. So that's what I want to share with you today. Again, my name is Cassandra, aka The Prosperous Heart. I love being able to share my knowledge with you and hopefully empower you to create a more prosperous life, whether that's through software engineering, gardening, project management, and strategic execution. I am so glad that you stayed with me through this today. I hope it was helpful for you, and I hope you have a wonderful and prosperous rest of your day. If you would like to learn more about this or would like some additional coaching opportunities, I do have my coaching program open, and I have a couple of one-on-one slots if you are looking for a more direct approach in your support. So just reach out to me. LinkedIn's probably going to be the best option for that, but whatever platform you're seeing this on, send me a message and we can chat. Thank you again. Hope you have a wonderful and prosperous rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.